Okay, thank you so much for still hanging out. Look at, everybody's almost still here. Fantastic. So let's give a big hand to Ed Smith and his New World Jazz Ensemble. All right. That was some great stuff at Big Hand. And then also before them, Eric Heidner and his Good Times. They're happy. Good Times, Big Band. You bump into them in the street and they're happy. There's not a frown in sight there. Okay, so we're in the lunch break, Big Band. We're going to do some songs for you. Hope you dig it. This is a nice, fun boogaloo. Does anybody remember boogaloo? How to dance to a boogaloo? Saw a few. Well, if you can, let's dig it. Let's dig it. So this is called Small Note Boogaloo. We're going to hear from a bunch of the band in here. So I hope you enjoy it. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, Small Note Boogaloo, written and arranged by Ben Patterson, and we heard from LEL up there. LEL, oh fantastic. And we also heard on our trombone, we heard from Henry. Henry over there. And then we also heard from on trumpet, Conrad. We had Conrad Stinson over there. And then rounding it up, we had Rob over here on the Barry sax. Rob. Okay, so now we're going to switch gears and we're going to kind of do a little fast samba. And this is written by Mark Taylor. That was originally featured in Stan Kenton's band. This is called Granada Smoothie. Now it could be a Arlington Daiquiri or a SOhO Mai Tai, but no, it's a Granada Smoothie. It has nothing to do with Granada across the street. But anyway, Granada Smoothie. And we're going to hear from more Conrad over here. Conrad, and we're also going to hear from our trombone, Lucas.
Lucas. One, two, two, two.
want a smoothie? Let's hear it here. Let's hear it with Conrad Stinson on the trumpet. All the way from Carpinteria. All right, Conrad Stinson. And then we have Lucas Carrera. And then let's introduce this rhythm section, this stellar rhythm section that's holding everything together. So over here we have the anchor. Over on the tap shoes we have Hayden Lowe. And right behind him we have his partner in crime, Nathan Cartier. And right next to him we also have Joshua Weathers on bass. Joshua Weathers, acoustic and electric. And then finally we have Dylan Kearns over here. Dylan on piano and synthesizer. And then kind of an honorary member of the saxophone section, we have Orlando. Hi, Orlando, there. He's going to stick to the guitar, don't worry. He's going to stick to the guitar. Okay, so the next one, we're going to do a fantastic ballad, and this is a Korean folk song, and it's called Arirang, and this is written for the trombone. And hot off of his tour of Puerto Rico and the Caribbean, we're going to welcome back Mark Maynard. Mark Maynard's got a fresh tan. Hopefully the glow doesn't hurt your eyes. And we hope you enjoy this. This is called Arirang. It's also going to feature Dylan Kearns. He wasn't in Puerto Rico. He was here, but he still has a nice tan. So Arirang. One measure. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, that was Aryong. That was a Korean folk song, probably the national song for South Korea. That was arranged by Ben Patterson, and as Eric Heidner mentioned earlier, Ben Patterson he's going to be coming to Santa Barbara and doing a concert with all three of the big bands, including Monday Madness, who was here last week. And Ben Patterson is a trombone player who graduated from the University of North Texas and went directly into the U.S. military, the Air Force. And he joined the U.S. Airmen of Note, which is one of the best musical jazz ensembles in the world. The musicians there are amazing. And so he was with the band for 22 years, and he recently retired. And so he's going to come by, and we're going to play some of this music, some other music you haven't heard yet, and we're going to have him as well. So that's going to be 2 weeks from tonight. It's coming down close. So we have another arrangement that we're going to do from Ben, and this is called Stank Face. Now, Stank Face, a lot of people might not know what a stank face is. Well, yes, yeah, I know, we know. So stank face is kind of that face that you make when you listen to something really funky or really just You know, you're crinkling your nose, and you know, you're getting into it. It's just, that's what the stank face is. And so hopefully, we'll see some stank faces before we leave tonight. Maybe it might be for the wrong reasons, maybe it'll be for the right reasons. We'll see, depends on the soloist here. So anyway, we're gonna hear from, oh, you guys are gonna do great, come on. Anyway, we're gonna hear from a lot of folks here. So this is called Stank Face. You know what? I'm sorry, because it's the second from the last song we're gonna play, and I need to introduce the rest of the band, so I apologize. So we got over here on the trumpet, we got on trumpets, we got Mike Hunter on trumpet. We got Evan Sullivan over here on trumpet. Over here, Evan. We got Conrad Stinson, who you've heard from. Conrad from Carpinteria. And we got over here, we have the fantastic Jim Mooey over here. And as well, we have Jocelyn Santos. Jocelyn Santos. And fantastic. And then we have trombones. We have Henry Theckel. Trombone, Henry. Jack Hans on trombone. Mark Maynard on trombone. And Lucas Carrera on trombone. And then finally our saxes. We have Rob Cortez on Barry sax. We have David Palafox on tenor sax. We have Eliel Pozos on alto. We have Jared Araya on alto here as well. And then joining us today, we have Chris Fedderson. He's subbing for our normal tenor player, July. And then also we have the great Orlando Geyer Lambert over here on guitar. Now we're ready for some stank face. Ready? All right, here we go. 2 measures. Okay, fantastic. We have over here, we have Eliel Pozos on alto saxophone. Eliel. We also had Orlando on guitar over here. Orlando. We also had Henry on the wind synthesizer, trombone, valve, slatteroo. And then we also had Lucas over here on the normal trombone. So stand up, everybody. This is lunch break. The big band, giving them a hand. Give them a hand. Give them a big hand there. Okay, so we're gonna just do one more just to leave you. We got the funk, but we're also gonna play some ripping bebop jazz for you. This is gonna feature the one, yes, that's right. Watch out for you asked for. We have a Jim Mui featuring, he's gonna do a nice romantic ballad. It's a beautiful ballad called Secret Love.
Be gentle. It's my first time.
Carry on. Here we go. 1, 2, and 1, 2. We'll see you in 2 weeks at the Garden. Jim Louie.
Yeah, I don't know. I listen to the herd. Yeah.